everybody, and welcome back to math class. And today we're looking at the idea of multiplying and dividing integers. And as we move into this lesson, I would like to just remind you of kind of a fundamental fact about multiplying. And that is that if we switch the position of the two things being multiplied, the two factors, it does not change the outcome. So 3 times 5 is 15. 5 times 3 is also 15. This seems maybe a little obvious, but a little bit into the lesson you'll see why it matters. You'll notice right here I've developed a sequence of numbers that is going to help us to develop our own guidelines for the rules for multiplying negative and positive numbers. So I'd like you to look at this sequence from top to bottom and see if you can determine precisely what's happening there. And I think you've seen it already. It's just dropping down by 3 each time. We have a gap of 3. So I'm going to take that series of numbers that drops by 3 each time, and what I'd like to do is multiply each number in the series by 2 and see what the result is. So we can see the results here, but I've stopped at a point because I want you to carry this on your own. So we can see that 9 times 2 is 18, 6 times 2 is 12, 3 times 2 is 6, and 0 times 2 is 0. And this part of the sequence we haven't learned how to handle yet because we haven't learned the rules for multiplying by negative numbers. However, because we're following a sequence on the left, our answers end up following a sequence as well. We have not changed the factor on the right-hand side. So let's look at the gap here. I'm going to let you take a look at that. And then when I say, I'm going to ask you to pause the video so that you can figure out for yourself what you think the answers down here ought to be. So please pause now, and we'll get right back to you. Okay, welcome back. Hopefully you were able to follow the sequence and come up with something that looks like this. So here we see that we're dropping down by 6 each time, and if we just continue to do that, then we can see, okay, negative 3 times 2 must result in negative 6 if we're going to follow the sequence, negative 6 times 2, negative 12, etc. And we can see now that if we have one negative number being multiplied by one positive number, our result will be negative. And if we go back to where I started the video now, which was way over here, if the first number is negative and the second positive and it results in this, and we switch their order, well, that means that it can go both ways. We could start with a positive number and then multiply by a negative, and we would still get the same result. So we can now say a negative times a positive will result in a negative answer. And a positive multiplied by a negative integer will also result in a negative answer. So we need to just take that a little bit further now and look at, okay, what happens if we multiply 2 negative numbers then? So here I've taken the same sequence we began with, 9, 6, 3, 0, negative 3, negative 6, negative 9, but I've changed the factor on the right-hand side to be negative 2. Now, because of the rule we just developed, what is the answer to this top question? Well, we know that if we have one positive and one negative number being multiplied, the result will be negative. So we can see these results added in over here. So just as you might expect, then 6 times negative 2, negative answer, 3 times negative 2, etc. But by continuing the sequence on the left into the negative realm, we can see now what's going to happen when we have a negative times a negative if we just follow this sequence downward. So now's the time to pause, see if you can figure it out for yourself, and then we'll take a look at the answers. So pause now. Welcome back, and let's look over here at the answers then. And hopefully you were able to see when you pause the video that when you take a negative number and you multiply it by another negative, we end up with a positive result. And we see that if we just follow this sequence of numbers where we are now increasing by 6 each time, and we just continue that in our pattern. So this distills down to actually two very simple rules. In the one case, we have two integers, and their signs are different. One is positive, one is negative. In all cases, we will get a negative result. The other situation is when the signs are the same, where we have a negative times a negative. In all cases there, we will have a positive result. And of course, the same is true if both integers are positive, we get a positive result. So it all comes down to this very simple set of rules, and it's really all you need to know for multiplying integers. If your two factors have different signs, your answer is negative. If your two factors have the same sign, the answer is positive, and this always holds true. And it's now just a very small leap to get from this idea of multiplying integers to the idea of dividing them. And to introduce that idea, I want to take a look at this with you. This is something we all know well, that this is like a fact family, and that if 3 times 5 is 15, then 15 divided by one of those two factors results in the other factor, and 15 divided by the other factor results in the first factor. This is always true. So let's apply this now to a fact family that includes a negative integer. So here we have a negative integer multiplied by a positive. Those are two different signs, and so we know the result must be negative. But now if we consider the entire fact family, we can say then that this negative 15 divided by one of our factors must result in the other factor. And so over here then, my answer is, you got it, negative 3. And then over here, if I've got the negative 15 divided by the negative 3, this should result in my remaining factor, positive 5. And hopefully, just by looking at this alone, you're able to see the same rules apply. When we're dividing integers, if the signs are different, as we have here, one negative and one positive, the result is always a negative integer. However, if our two integers have the same sign, then our result is a positive integer. And so once again, we're back to this same set of rules. This is what makes multiplying and dividing integers so nice and so straightforward. It does not matter whether we're multiplying or dividing. The rules seen here always apply. Signs are different, answer is negative. Signs are the same, answer is positive. All right, so we will do some questions with both multiplying and dividing integers. There will be a short quiz on it, and we'll check in with you tomorrow. Bye for now.
And you see, it's just that easy.